either A or B. Christian revelatory theism, or B, atheism. We all make presuppositions. Laws of logic. What does he say? Abstract, universal, invariant, identity over time, etc. You have to say which one can actually give an account for that, uniformity of nature. Well, atheism says, as you saw Stein, there are no immaterial entities, souls, God, etc. So everything is materialistic, right? It's matter. It's matter bouncing around in different configurations. Also, it denies, B denies that there's actually a all-loving, personal creator that creates all these things, the laws of logic, to be invariant. Because you might ask, well, wait a minute, if it's just molecules bouncing around, why do the laws not change? Why can't it be something different tomorrow? What if the molecules bounce in a different way? How can I account for that? How can I account for everything's material, something being abstract, universal, and invariant, when everything, as we saw the argument that I presented, everything material is particular. Materialism cannot account for universals and abstract, invariant laws. And if A and B are mutually, let's say they're contradictory positions, such that, remember what on the square of opposition, this cannot be true and this be true. They hold opposite truth values. This is the denial of A. If A, Christian revelatory theism, is that there's a loving, personal God that creates all this stuff on purpose, there's intention behind the universe. This, what's the opposite of doing something on tension? If you crashed into the stop sign, you didn't do it on purpose, it was what? An accident. So can the world view particular, constantly changing accidentalism account for, can you have accidental laws of physics? Can you have accidental knowledge? Can you have universal particulars? Can particulars account for universals? He's going to say, your presupposition not only doesn't make sense of everything that we hold, it contradicts it. And so it can't be B. And if it can't be B, and the only other worldview is A, then A is true, and A is the presupposition by which we affirm all logical processes and account for the world. We don't have another standard. There is no other standard. It's self-authenticating. It is that by which it's the necessary condition for the possibility of logic, reasoning. So, for example, remember when we said if P then Q. I know it's difficult, but necessary and sufficient. Remember sun? If I'm ice skating, I have ice skates. So ice skates is a necessary condition for ice. If I have a cake, I have at least flour, eggs, and water. So I can't get this without this. if there's knowledge, then there is some necessary condition for the possibility of knowledge. Correct? Just like, now you got to find, what is it? What are your two options? Intentionalism through Christian revelatory theism, or accidentalism. If accidentalism, it destroys the possibility of knowledge. And even making arguments. Not accidental, therefore. So what we have is that God is, the Christian theism, is just as eggs and flour are the necessary conditions for having a cake, God, the Christian God, is the necessary conditions for knowledge. So that if knowledge, then God. Knowledge, therefore God. That's just if P, then Q, P, therefore Q. And somebody says, well, how do you prove that? You missed the point. There is nothing separate. If Q is the necessary conditions for proof, if that's the starting point, and you say, well, how do you prove that? You've missed the point. Q is that by which we prove everything else. It's the proof for proofs. Does that make sense? That's a transcendental argument. You do not prove God's existence by some separate arbitrary standard that you just make up and is unjustified. It is that by which everything else is proven. That's the argument that he's actually proven by God. So you can't say, well, how do you prove that? Okay. That is the proof of proofs. Like, you can't go anywhere else. Like everything is proof of God. And that's why he will say, there are no arguments against the existence of God. Every argument is an argument for the existence of God. Everything is evidence for the existence of God.